Hello, welcome everybody. There is a lot of hype surrounding the Russian pension reform 2018, both domestically and internationally. It is quite an unpopular reform which is costing a lot of political pressure on Putin and reducing his popularity in Russia. Let's enter the Russian world and see what exactly is the Russian pension reform. Is it necessary? Is it correct? If it is not correct, then what are the things that are needed to be included in this reform? Let's begin our journey. What is the Russian pension reform 2018? The Russian pension reform 2018 is a fiscal reform by the government of Russia aimed to balance the social security spending for the pension by raising the retirement age of men from 60 to 65 years and women from 55 to 60 years. Previously, the hike for women was from 55 to 63 years, but later it was reduced by 3 years by the decision of Mr. Putin so that the unpopularity decreases to some extent. Yeah, it is an unpopular reform. It is a universal fact. But we are here to explain, was it necessary and is it wrong? And if it is, what is its weakness? Let's begin our journey into the Russian world and explore these various aspects of this reform. Moving on to the next slide. Was the reform necessary is our question. Yes, it was necessary. It was extremely necessary for the Russian economy, without which the economy will not be sustainable. The cause of it is the Russian population, which has about 143 million population but a very low birth rate. It has TFR of about 1.87 according to the latest data from Rosat, the state statistics agency. An increasing number of pensioners. The number of pensioners is about 41 million according to the data by Rostat. Having a third of population as pensioner is a serious drag to the economy, and the reform was absolutely necessary to lessen the burden to the economy as well as the budget. Since the increasing number of pensioners requires more pension spending on the social security, so it is absolutely necessary for the Russian government to increase the retirement age. But was only increasing the retirement age the solution to this problem? Was the reform enough? Let's explore it. Is the reform right? If we simply answer this question, the answer will be yes. But more close analysis reveals a big no. It actually delays the pressure on the budget by the social security spending on the pension than solving it. So this reform is wrong and the Russian government must understand it. Increasing retirement age in a country with low life expectancy like Russia, which has 71 years life expectancy only, encourages people to save money as they will retire much later and they will lose their job much earlier. And this will not provide any boost to the Russian economy as about 70% of the savings are in the foreign currency and actually increase the capital flight and keep a downward pressure on the ruble and further deteriorate the economy. And the increasing retirement age forces the parents to have more saving, and to have more saving they try to reduce the economic burden, and in doing so they reduce the number of children, which are the major economic burden for any parents, and this aggravates the very problem the reform is trying to solve. And in this regard the reform is not right, it is wrong. But how to apply the reform in the right way and which part it misses that makes it wrong? Yes, it is wrong because it misses a prime quality a democratic government must give it. There are three simple ways to solve it. The number first is make the reform option, not reality. The second one is to make it a solution of problem, not proof of that problem. And the third one is to use this reform as a benefit and use it as an economic stimulus, not for economic stability. These three simple steps will make the reform acceptable to the population and sustainable for far ahead in the future. But what does that mean? We are here to explore these simple steps and see actually what I am trying to say you in these slides. Now moving on to the next slide. Make reform an option, not reality. The reform's main weakness is its rigid nature. It does not give any choices to the people, but that it only gives them a big burden on their back simply for benefiting the government, which is actually making the reform more and more unpopular. Let's explore it in this way. What if the reform had a democratic taste in it called the choice, which will simply make it popular? Let's imagine a hypothetical scenario in which the reform had this kind of points. The number first, no child, men and women retire at 70 years, one child at 67, two child at 62 and three child at 57, and four child, men and women let's see. No child, men and women retire at 70 years, one child, men and women retire at 67, two child 62, three child 57, and four child, men and women at 55. Four child men at 55 and female can receive pension payment right after the birth of fourth child, and they can continue their work. We include children which are born or adopted and if died before the age of active participation, that is from 15 to 59, they are not counted. It will both reduce the economic burden and solve the cause of the reform both. And this is an option the government must provide in the reform. I am sorry for my bad voice. Well, I am not very good speaker. Well, I am trying to my best to explain it as good as possible. Now moving on to the next slide. Make it solution of the problem, not proof. This is a major point. We have to apply any reform to solve the problem, not to provide the proof of that problem. The reform does not solve a problem, but in fact, it actually gives the proof of the problem. We have already discussed that the low birth rate is the cause of reform and it should try to solve rather than proving it. In the earlier suggestion, we gave it an option. Regardless to what people chose, it results in the solution of the problem, not actually aggravating it. In the previous or the current reform, it actually aggravates the situation and tries to delay the problem, not solve it. But if we simply adjust and add an option to this reform, it will in fact try to solve the problem. If people chooses less children as per our previous hypothesis, then the burden will be automatically less for the government because of the higher retirement age for the parents. And if the people chooses for more children, then there will be more active population and it will simply cancel out or balance the early pension that is provided for their parents. So any reform must address the solution of the problem, not try to delay it or try to prove that problem in fact. And in this regard, the Russian pension reform 2018 is no exception and it must give these points a say. And moving on to the next slide. Make it economic stimulus, not stability. The government can use this reform as an economic stimuli, not as an economic stability tool which is trying to use it simply for saving some bucks of money and just trying to make the economy stable. When in fact, if used correctly, that can provide a huge stimulus to the economy. The government with the central bank should use the reform as an economic stimuli rather than a stability tool. Let's imagine a hypothetical condition of this reform in which it had the following points. If the government funded a pension fund that has a voluntary payment above a certain minimal benchmark, say about 3000 rubles a month, and the government will provide interest to that pension fund about interest to the pension fund equal to the OFZ bond, then surely the pensioners' saving will fuel the economic growth and give huge benefit to the current government struggling to find debt. The pensioners will have to pay the debt 3000 rubles per month anyhow, and if they give voluntarily more money for simply the profit they earn by the interest rates given by the government biannually, then you will surely fund a lot of the economic growth. And imagine if 60 million active people, I have to add that the labor force of Russia is 79.2 million people, and even if the unemployment rate is 5%, let's see If 60 million people invested 36,000 rubles a year, then that amounts to about 2.16 trillion rubles or about $36 billion. That will surely provide a big stimulus to the economy and give valuable cash to the cash strapped government of Russia. And at last but not the least, the conclusion of this. All the assumptions and hypotheses and comments in this pension reform. From all the explanation before and ideas we provided, we come to the conclusion that the reform is extremely necessary for Russia, but at the same time is being implemented in the wrong way. If the reform is used in the right way, it will provide a big stimulus to the economy and at the same time provide big birth boom for the Russia and improve its demographic. Thank you. If you like our commentary, do subscribe the channel and like this video and support us. Thank you.